Happy Halloween! We used to make a big deal out of Halloween. We belonged to a boat club, and every year we would go out to an island in the Multnomah Channel in Portland, Oregon, and decorate an island with all of the Spook Cruise, we called it, all of the Spook Cruise decorations. And some of them got to be quite elaborate. Please enjoy my stories or whatever else might be on my mind today. One of the ones that I made, I dressed myself up as a giant bat. I made styrofoam wings that were a wingspan of about 8 feet. And, you draw all this stuff out in July and August, making your plans. And on paper, if you're going to stand on a picnic table that's kind of decorated like a graveyard with a graveyard sign over the entrance to that little area that you've been designated to decorate. And on paper you draw that you're going to jerk yourself as a bat up into a tree about 30 feet on 5/16 inch aircraft cable. And you're going to do this by filling a canvas mail bag full of rocks to equal your weight, and then there's a trip, and when the rocks go slamming down to the ground, the bat flies up in the air with the big vampire teeth and stuff, and it was quite dramatic. And of course we did it as people were walking past the graveyard, and all of a sudden this apparition flies up over their heads. And then the next group that comes along, you fly down out of the tree. And what I started to say was, when you're drawing all that out in July and August on paper, 30 feet doesn't look like it's very far up in the air, but I guarantee you, if you tie yourself onto a bag of rocks and jerk yourself 30 feet up in the air, it's exciting. That was one of the things. One of my best and favorite things on there, it wasn't my display, it was a friend. He got in a gorilla suit and made this visqueen, that's black plastic vapor barrier. Made a visqueen tunnel, and he painted white stripes on the visqueen, and then he had a strobe light in there, so it was very disorienting as you walk through this tunnel. And just as you got halfway into the tunnel, there was a big cage with bars about this big around and a gorilla inside of the cage. And as the kids would approach the cage and, kind of back up because they were afraid of the gorilla would grab the bars, which were actually big rubber bungee cords, pull them apart and chase them out of the tunnel. That was one of my favorites. A friend and I built one. It was, we called it the earthquake. We took a bunch of rollers on other pipes so that it could kind of go along with that, put a piece of plywood on top of it, and then we had a machine that would kind of jerk it. So when people walked across that part of the path, we covered it all with dirt. When people walked across that part of the path, we'd flip the switch, and all of a sudden they were in an earthquake. And of course there were all of those regular Halloween things like ghosts and goblins and a guy in the middle of an operation laying there with his guts all over the table, and what else? Oh, there was always space aliens, and this was another one that I and Lynn did. The scene was a graveyard, and Lynn was kind of a ghoulish-looking thing, kind of laying there. And then she would sit up, and after people assumed she was just laying there. But, that was okay. And then all of a sudden, the lid would come off of the coffin, and I would jump out, dressed up like a zombie. Anyway, one of the things that I built for that was a skeleton. I took a regular life-size cardboard skeleton that you would hang on your door at Halloween time, and I traced it onto 1/4-inch plywood with a pentagraph. A pentagraph is a thing that multiplies the stroke of a pen by 5 times. So I built a skeleton that was 5 times life size. As a matter of fact, it was 18 foot, 4 inches tall, and I put it on the front of my White House. This is a picture from 1984 on the front page of the Oregonian newspaper. So that's Bonnie. We called her Bonnie. It's kind of a play on the words of Boney. She's not standing up straight, but she's 18 foot 4 inches tall if she did stand up straight. And then there's a pumpkin over there. And the pumpkin was 9 foot tall, built out of a piece of 8 foot plywood. And then cutting out the stem and putting it on top, it was 9 foot tall. So that's Bonnie and the jack-o'-lantern. And that guy standing right there on the porch, that's me. So what happened to this was that we used it for years to be the Spook Walk entrance out there on the island in our boat club. So people would walk through the legs, underneath the legs of Boney. I loaned it to a friend of mine who had a restaurant. He put the skeleton and the pumpkin up on top of his restaurant one Halloween, and it was stolen. So that's the end of the story for that one. I always thought I was going to find it hanging off of one of the bridges that crossed the Willamette River, like Bonnie would be hanging by the neck off the river bridge. Never did see it again. Called the police. Said they stole my skeleton. And of course, you know, it's like right after Halloween, and they didn't really believe me when I told them it was 18 foot 4 inches tall. This paper is the evening edition. It's black and white. I was supposed to be in the colored morning paper, but I was bumped by more important news. The death of Indira Gandhi. There's another thing on this newspaper that, for those of you who are old enough to remember it, you might find interesting. NASA to pick teacher astronaut. And of course, we remember what happened when they did pick her. She went up in the space shuttle, I think it was named Columbia, and they all died. Anyway, that's my picture, my one claim to fame on the front page of the Oregonian newspaper in 1984. That's my Halloween story, except my daughter got her nails painted. And I want to show you her nails. So Becky got her nails painted for Halloween. What's this one?
We've got bloody teeth, a ghost, a cat, 3D eyeballs, spider, web, shout out to Walking Dead fans, that's a bloody hand, a pumpkin, and cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And these are hand painted?
Yes.
Wow. How much does that cost? You don't have to answer.
You don't need to know.
It's about $160.
That one is 3D. And over here, the spider, he's got a glittered abdomen. And the eyeballs are bloodshot. The detail is just amazing. Every time we look, let me see the graveyard. Tombstones, ugly trees, rest in peace, a cross. The detail is amazing. I can see why it took 4 hours to do this. I was in our old neighborhood in Portland on Mount Tabor the other day. This is the house that those pictures of Bonnie the skeleton were taken. We lived in that house for 10 years. Up the street, this house was the second Victorian built on Mount Tabor, and the first one that was built has been torn down. It's demolishing set in motion the Historical Society in Portland. This one you may recognize if you've ever watched the TV series Grimm. Some of the scenes from Grimm are shot at and in this house. It was the home of our friends Carol and Mike when we lived in the neighborhood. These three houses are all within a block and a half of each other. So from Carol and Mike's house, where Grimm was filmed, down to our house was a block down the hill. And I'm telling you that because one Christmas day, Carol and Mike's son, the house where Grimm was filmed, ran down the hill to show us his new windbreaker that he had gotten for Christmas. And he ran up on the porch and met us and told us that in his new windbreaker, 4-year-old Christopher said, "I ran down the hill so fast, I broke wind." And he didn't know why we were laughing at him. I saw this guy at Home Depot the other day, and if I wasn't traveling in a motorhome, he'd be going home with me. I need this guy. I need this guy a lot. So we've gone for a walk and found ducks. It says it's a watershed area and that it's important and you should protect it. These two over here, they're Mexican ducks. You know how you can tell they're Mexican ducks?
I don't.
They're having a siesta. This is a city park in Sherwood, Oregon. How far do you think this goes?
The
Couple of miles? Or?
It's kind of hard to say. I don't know where the park ends. There's all sorts of walking trails. Sherwood's really known for the walking trails, and especially the green belts that connect to each other, and then eventually up to the wildlife refuge up there, Tualatin, Sherwood area. Usually we see nutrias in here. In the summertime, of course, lots of dragonflies. I've heard that salmon actually run through this, even though the water's really high right now, and when it's not this high, the amount of water here is very limited.
So, for those of viewers who don't know, you want to tell us what a nutria is?
I know that they are non-natives. It's a rodent. Looks maybe like a giant, kind of like a beaver, but without the flat tail. It's kind of a rat tail.
It's like a cross between a muskrat and a rat.
I was going to say capybara, which
A capybara.
some of your more southern ones
A capybara.
might recognize, but I guess it's got the tail.
No, it's like a muskrat.
It is. It is.
It's Puff the Magic Dragon. Woo. I'm admiring your decorations. The Headless Horseman.
There's a car coming.
Woo. Another dragon. Everybody's dream. A white picket fence and an outhouse. Hey, if you like me, give me one of those thumbs up. And please subscribe and hit that little bell so you know when I post next. Please share me with your friends on social media. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed what was on my mind today.